Okay, continuing with binomials here. Let's say we have a question that just asks about a coefficient, like find the coefficient, I'm not going to spell all that out, okay, for the x to the 5th, y to the 8th term of x plus y to the, that must be to the 13th, right? Okay, so we want to find the coefficient. So this is to the 13th. That means there's 14 terms, all right? And we want to find the coefficient for the term that has the x to the 5th, y to the 8th on it. But what we don't want to do is do all the work to list all those out. We only want that one term. This is where Pascal's triangle is going to be a little bit too much work, unless you already have it all drawn out somewhere, which would be fine, okay? But we can just use a combination here to get this coefficient. Alright? So the easy way to do the combination here is just 13, that's the end, C, and now what we're going to use for our R after the combination is either the 5 or the 8. The exponent to the x or the y. Okay, either one. And I say either one because remember these are symmetrical, and 13C5 actually is the same thing as 13C8. So it doesn't matter which one you use. Okay? So I'm just going to use the 13C5, and if you put that in the calculator, you get 1287. Okay? 1287. That is the coefficient that goes in front of the x to the 5th, y to the 8th term. Alright? Let me look at a couple more examples here. Let's find the x to the 7th term of x minus 3 to the 11th. Now this one's a little bit different because instead of two variables, I have this minus 3 here. Okay? We're just going to get numbers from that, but we're still going to set it up the same way. Okay? We're still going to set it up the same way. Well, let me talk about how we would actually expand this before I actually get to this specific term here. If we want to expand x minus 3 to the 11th, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to set this up the same way. I'm not going to do all of them, okay, but I'm going to do a few right here. So we're going to have for our coefficients 11C0, 11C1, 11C2, 11C3, 11C4, and so on. I'll stop right there. Okay. So those are our coefficients. Now, 11C0 is 1. 11C1 is 11. 11C2 happens to be 55. 11C3. Let me do 11C3 real quick. Is 165. Okay, I'll stop there. 165. Okay, now, so those are the coefficients. So remember that this 1 is going to go in front of x to the 11th, and then this is where you got to be careful now. Negative 3 is our second term. Negative 3. So it's going to be negative 3 to the 0. It doesn't matter on this term, but here it does. 11 x to the 10th, negative 3 to the 1, plus 55 x to the 9th, negative 3 squared, plus 165 x to the 8th, negative 3 cubed. Okay, notice how the exponents still add up to 11, alright, and so on. It's going to keep going. But now these terms over here, there's numbers in front and after the x, and those are numbers, and so what we want to do is combine those into one coefficient. Alright? This one, obviously, that cancels out, so that's just x to the 11th. Now in this one, we have a negative 3 to the first power. That's negative 3 times 11, so that's negative 33. So actually, let me get rid of that. That's going to come out to minus 33 x to the 10th. Okay. Now here we have a negative 3 squared, which is 9. 9 times 55 is 495, and that's going to be plus because it's negative 3 squared. So plus 495 x to the 9th. Okay, we don't have this negative 3 squared anymore because we just took that, made it 9, and multiplied it by 55 and got this new coefficient in front of 495 x to the 9th. Okay, and then we'd have this one over here would be, actually it's going to be minus, right? Because negative 3 cubed is negative 27. Negative 27 times 165 is negative 4455. So that's minus 4455 x to the 8th. Okay, so notice when we're notice how when we're doing this, we only have x's here. We only have x's because instead of having an a and a b or an x and a y, that second term is this negative 3. We treat it the same way, but then have this extra step of combining it with the coefficient by multiplying. Okay, for our final polynomial here. Now this was asking for x to the 7th, so I actually would have I would have one more I'd have to do to get there. Right, I got to x to the 8th right here. But let's just go ahead and pretend we didn't do all that. I just want to do that to explain where these come from when you have a number, because it does make a little bit of a difference. But let's just jump straight to x to the 7th as if we were starting this problem. Okay, we could say the coefficient is 11c7. That's the coefficient. All right, and then we're going to have our x to the 7th, negative 3 to the, this would have to be 4, because 7, we have to add up. That has to add up to 11. Those exponents have to add up to 11. Okay, so we don't have to do all of this stuff. You can just jump straight to that term. All right. So now we can simplify this. 11c7 is 330. X to the 7th. Negative 3 to the 4th is what? 81. Okay, and then we multiply the 81 and the 330, and we get 26,730 x to the 7th. So that is the coefficient for the x to the 7th term of x minus 3 to the 11th. Okay. Let's do one more example here. Let's say we have 2y minus 3x to the 5th. Okay, and we want to expand that. So again, my coefficients are going to be 5c0. I'm going to give myself some space here. 5c1, 5c2, 5c3. I'm going to still run out of space. 5c4, 5c5. Okay. Now back to Pascal's triangle. We already kind of know what that is. That's 1, 5, 10, 10, 5, 1. Okay. Or you don't have to do the combinations. You can just go to Pascal's triangle and get those coefficients. Okay. But now we have the situation where it's not just an x and a y. We have coefficients in front of those, and we have a negative sign. So let's just take this step by step. Okay. This first coefficient is going to be 1. Now I'm going to use parentheses here. 2y. That is now my first term. That 2y is the whole thing. So I'm keeping it together in parentheses. 2y to the 5th. And my second term is negative 3x. And that's going to be to the 0. Okay. And then I have my 5 coefficient here. And then I have 2y. This is going to go down to the 4th. And negative 3x goes up to the 1. Alright. And then I have my 10 and 2y cubed, negative 3x squared. And then I have my next 10 with 2y squared, negative 3x cubed. And then I have my 5 with 2y to the 1 and negative 3x to the 4th. And then I have my last one with 2y to the 0, so I'm not going to even write it there, negative 3x to the 5th. Okay, and then I just want to simplify that. So 2 to the 5th is 32. This negative 3x to the 0 we can cancel out because anything to the 0 is 1. So this is 32y to the 5th. This 5th power gets distributed to both the 2 and the y. Okay? So 2 to the 5th is 32, y to the 5th. That's good for that one. Over here we've got, remember, do exponents before multiplying, right? Exponents come before multiplying. So 2 to the 4th is 16. I have this 5. I have this 16. I also have this negative 3. It's all multiplying, so I can multiply all those together. And I'll get, that means I got to change that plus to a minus, right? You could say plus and negative, but let's just keep it clean. Put a minus there. And this is 80 times negative 3, so that's negative 240. And that's going to be y to the 4th x. I took all the numbers and combined them in front as one coefficient. And I'm left with y to the 4th and just an x to the 1 there. Okay. Now over here, it's going to be squared, so it's going to be a plus. So I've got this 10. I've got 2 cubed, which is 8. I've got negative 3 squared, which is 9. So that is altogether 720. And I've got this y cubed x squared. This one's going to be minus now because I've got this 10. I've got 2 squared, which is 4. And I've got negative 3 cubed, which is negative 27. So that is, what is that? 27. That comes out to 1080. That's negative, so it's 1080. And that is going to be y squared x cubed. Alright? This is going to be plus now. I've got a 5 and a 2 to the 1, so that's 2. And a negative 3 to the 4th, which is a positive 81. So that would be 405 times 2, so that would be 810. Somebody check me. Oh yeah, 5 times 2 is 10. So that would be 810. Y, x to the 4th. And then this last one, there's no y term. And the coefficient, the original coefficient's 1. So all we have to do is negative 3 to the 5th. So that's going to be minus 243 x to the 5th. Okay, it's a little bit of work, but you don't have to do all of that for all the problems. You just have to, sometimes you're just trying to find one of those. But yeah, that's how you expand a binomial. Okay, without that, even though it's a lot of work here, that's a lot less work than taking 5 of these things and trying to multiply all of them together. Okay? Believe me? Try it if you don't believe it. Okay, so we got some homework here, which is on page 715, and we're going 1 through 25 odd. Alright, have fun.